Welcome to the TOCA Backstage podcast. Join TOCA's Executive Director, Chris Wolf, in conversations with the artists and people behind the scenes of the Torrance Cultural Arts Foundation's performances and events.
Hi, I'm Chris Wolf, Executive Director of the Torrance Cultural Arts Foundation, with another episode of TOCA Backstage. It is my extreme honor to have Shinoharu, actually directly from Japan. He will be a part of the Friendship Festival, the 50th anniversary of the Torrance Sister City performance coming up on February 18th at the Armstrong Theater at 7 p.m. Sir, thank you so very much for taking the time. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much. I'm very, very excited too.
Again, forgive my mispronunciation. Is it Rakugo? How do you pronounce it?
Rakugo, yes,
Rakugo?
yes.
It's a specific type of storytelling. Can you tell us a little bit about what it is?
Mm-hmm. It's a traditional form of entertainment that's been around in Japan for over 200 years. And it's comedy, and it's a solo comedy where one rakugo performer sits on a stage, and so we perform sitting down, and then acts out all the characters to tell a story.
And how did you find your way into this? Is it something that was in your family? Is it something that you were introduced to at one point?
Not at all, actually. I was actually one of the exchange students for the 20th exchange student group. And when I went to Torrance, when I was a high school student, I had never seen Rakugo at all. And I met Rakugo when I was 25. So after I graduated from college and I started working for a Japanese trading company, and I saw Rakugo for the first time, and I was impressed. And I thought, wow, we have this kind of comedy. It's really fun. And so that's when I started wanting to quit the job and become a Rakugo performer.
That's great. It's interesting. You hear something. There's your cat.
Yeah. She's called Tama.
Awesome.
We'll carry on with her. Is that okay?
Of course. If one of mine comes back behind me, I apologize.
We'll do it on both sides.
Okay. So, as I understand it, just looking at your website, you were born in Osaka. You were raised in New York.
For just several years.
Okay.
When I was in elementary school, and then I ended up in Kashiwa when I was in junior high.
And your transition from working a regular job to becoming the storyteller, was that difficult, or was it just easy thing to do?
It was really difficult because we have to go through a very traditional style of apprenticeship. And that took 8 years for me, and where it's a style of apprenticeship where we have to work under a master, run all his errands, just stick with him, go to his house every day, clean his house, and do all sorts of things. And so I didn't have time for myself. And I was not able to perform on myself as well. We have to go to another level to be able to perform on our own. So that was a tough time, actually.
And so when you're working with the master, you're basically absorbing what he has to teach you, and then and then you're allowed to perform on your own after a certain time.
Right, but in the Japanese style, the teacher doesn't teach. Actually, we're just told to steal his technique, and so just being with him and sticking with him. So not really verbally something technical he would teach. Just we would observe on our side, I guess.
That's interesting. I mean, I've part of me thinks that's kind of amazing because you're immersed in the art form with the master, and while he's not telling you to do A, B, and C, you're sort of absorbing what he has to offer just by being there. That's interesting. Now,
the only things he told me was just go out and buy a carton of cigarettes or milk or stuff like that
for him?
For him, yeah.
And then now that you're doing it, I'm assuming you do this full time. You don't have another day job. What are the stories like set stories, or do you just go out and make up your own, or is it that you have like a certain protocol for stories?
Yes, we have both actually. We have the classical stories that have been passed on from master to apprentice for a long time, and also we have the original stories that we make on our own. So we do both, and the classical stories do not have a really firm text, it's not like taught from textbooks and stuff. It's all verbal, oral tradition. So the master performs in front of the apprentice, and we learn from him orally. So it's until this time it's oral tradition.
And then are you not necessarily allowed, but do you make up your own stories, or are the stories like this happened to me back in the day, or is it something just like making it up on your own?
It's sort of like, I guess, folk tales where we disappear as narrator, and so maybe I make up my own original stories. I guess there are about 1,000 professional rakugo performers, and among them, maybe 70% only stick to classical stories. Maybe 20% do both classical and original, and 10% just original stories. And I'm the 20% which does both. But so we may make original stories based on our own experiences, but we don't tell it firsthand. So we disappear as narrators, and we create characters that may have the same kind of experience that we had.
And I'm curious because I know, like, occasionally we'll do a storytelling night where we'll get a bunch of different people. They'll tell stories, and they're often like, "This happened to me, and here's the moral of the story." But those performances are few and far between. Is your type of storytelling like real popular in Japan? Is there like a big audience for it?
Yes, some performers. Some of the most popular performers attract maybe like 1,000 people. It's not, I guess, compared to stand-up comedy, the size is smaller. The audience size is smaller. I guess about 300 people is the best size for rakugo, I would say.
Yeah, it would seem to me it would lend itself to a more intimate experience because you're right there with the storyteller.
But then on microphone and things, so we tell a story. We don't actually tell a story by saying, okay, so there was this man and he went to this place and he met this woman and they had a conversation like this. So we don't do this. We act the man, and so he's going, hello, hey, how you doing? It's been a while since you came here. Come in, like this. So just dialogues to tell a story.
So it's like almost like a monologue where you're playing both, or like all the characters.
Right. Yeah. That's true. Yeah.
And it's, I mean, that seems, as a performer, to me, that would be almost even more fun to do because you get to make up the voices and the character, you know, how they act and what they do.
Right. So as the audience as well, so they get to picture the real scene that's unfolding in front of them. not through myself, but just the actual scene. And so they use imagination. We try to invoke imagination. So we collaborate to create one common experience, and that's the most exciting part.
Yeah, because I can see from an audience perspective where you're watching the performer, but you're sort of being fed the information that's creating the picture in your head.
Right.
And do you when you tell the stories, do you also sort of paint a picture of where you're at in the scene, or do you just leave that up to the imagination?
Yes, we do. We give the information, we provide the information so that so it would be easy for the audience to picture what's going on, where, and who. She's agreeing.
Yeah. And so, how many years have you been doing the storytelling?
I have been doing this since 2002, so it's been 20 years.
Wow, that's so cool. And one of the things that, besides doing performances like this that we're doing with the Sister City, one of our objectives is to encourage young performers. As somebody who had a day job and then sort of left it, moved into the art.
Yeah.
What words of wisdom do you pass along to other performers who want to do what you do?
Well, the thing was, in Japan, the way to go through training, the kind of education we receive is not like in the in the US, where I guess it's a positive reinforcement style in the US. In our style, in our traditional style, it's completely negative reinforcement. So the master saying, "Oh, you have no talent, you should quit," things like that, to get you, I guess, wanting to do more or impress the master, and that's a traditional style. And so I've been told many times, especially during my first 8 years, that I had no talent. I should just quit and stuff like that. But if you stick to it, then I guess no one can really determine if you have the right talent for certain art. So if you stick to it, I guess you'll find the right talent in yourself for that art, I guess.
And I have to imagine that's sort of hard to have that constant, you're no good, you're no good. I mean, how did you deal with that?
I guess I was it was a good thing about the American education as well that I received when I was in elementary school, that I had a higher self-confidence than most Japanese people. And I was more optimistic than most Japanese people. So I guess I've been told that, but I didn't believe in that totally. So if you believe in that totally, there was no chance you could continue that kind of training.
And do you find that kind of that master student relationship happens in other art forms too, like Taiko and other things? Is that sort of
yes I think it's gradually changing nowadays, but in the like sushi restaurants, they have the apprenticeship kind of a relationship, or sumo or kabuki, all the traditional things we still had, especially 20 years ago when I started my training. We still had that a lot. Now it's changing. Actually, it was changing gradually, but now at this moment, it's changed rapidly.
And with this Rakugo, did you ever think that you might want to try, like you mentioned, like kabuki or taiko? And was there another art form that attracted you, or was this really what you wanted to do?
This was really what I wanted to do. And this was actually a good area for me, where I don't come from a family that has been doing that art form for a long time. It's like for kabuki, you sort of have to come from that kind of family to be successful or to have a certain role. You can't come from a different family and go inside, even if you train very, very hard. It's still very limited. But in the world of rakugo, there's no such thing. So you can come from outside and be, if you do your best, you can go up to the top.
And I have to imagine that being bilingual like you are, that it's, I mean, obviously, I'm assuming when you're in Japan, all your performances are in Japanese.
Yeah,
do you ever do them in English in Japan?
Yes, once in a while. I go to like international schools in Japan. They want an experience, Japanese cultural experience that they can enjoy in English. So this is perfect. And so I go around to different countries before the COVID-19 period began. Yeah. So it's very exciting to go to Torrance after the 3 years of not really being able to go abroad.
Yeah, well, we're excited to have you back, and I'm curious, COVID, like for over here,
yeah,
it shut us down for like almost 2 years, I guess. How did you manage to work through that?
It shut us down for about half a year completely. So we weren't able to perform in person. But then we had the Zoom and we had the online live streaming, which I never imagined that I would do before, like 3 years ago. But then I could not do a show in person, so I had to rely on that. And it was I had doubts in the beginning, how comedy would go in online situation. But then we had to try it out, and it worked, I guess, and it was a very necessary experience for me.
Yeah, I think a lot of artists, that was just sort of, nobody really wanted to do it. I think everybody just had to do it to survive, and thankfully it was there. It was a tool that enabled a lot of people to get by during that time. So yeah, and thankfully it's a tool where I get to talk to you. I mean, here it's 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and there it's like what, 10 o'clock in the morning.
It's 10 o'clock in the morning. Yeah.
So you're coming to Torrance, and you're gonna, do you have like, now here's a question, when you have this performance scheduled for February 18th, do you already know what stories you're going to tell, or are you just going to make it up when you get here, decide I'm going to do this one and that one?
Yeah, we decide on the spot usually. So depending on the audience, we see like the age group, and so we start out with an introduction and then talk with the audience, and then decide which story to tell. So it's that moment.
Wow, that's exciting, because you really have no clue what you're going to do until you get there, right? How fun. So and I imagine, having done this for so long, you have sort of a backlog of stories that, I mean, you can draw on any one of them, right?
Yes. But then some of the stories are about an hour long, so I wouldn't be choosing those stories.
Well, you might get inspired. What do you have, like a favorite story to tell?
Yeah. Well, actually, most of the rakugo stories are basically saying how foolish we are, and how silly things that we do. But it's those silly things, or it's those mistakes that make us attractive and fun, charming. And so those kinds, I guess it crosses the border, and it can be appreciated by many people. So there are some universal themes inside rakugo. So I'm probably choosing from that theme. Whereas in Japan, when I do it in Japanese, we rely a lot on puns. Japanese people like puns a lot, but I wouldn't be choosing those stories.
Okay. Okay.
Mhm.
I wonder why. I wonder why there's a love of puns in Japan.
Yeah, I guess the vocabulary, Japanese vocabulary is the variety of sounds is limited in Japanese compared to English. So we have words that mean different, have different meanings with the same sound a lot.
Huh. That's interesting. So when you're during this show,
Mhm.
you're going to be performing. Do you know? I imagine you have friends in Torrance that you built from when you were there as an exchange, as part of the Sister City exchange.
Yeah, I'm hoping so. The 20th exchange students. So we had 8 students coming from Kashiwa and eight students from Torrance. So I'm hoping to meet some of them. And the 19th and 21st, I was doing the Sister City exchange activities in Kashiwa, so I've met some of them. So yes, I'm looking forward to seeing a lot of them there.
That's wonderful. Well,
Yeah,
I can't thank you enough for taking the time. I know
no
you're
problem.
extremely busy. So I
No.
just want to remind people it's the 50th anniversary of Torrance Sister City. It's called the Friendship Festival, February
Mhm.
18th at 7 p.m. at the Armstrong Theater. Shinoharu, thank you so much, and we look forward to seeing you then.
Yes, and me too. And I'm very looking forward to seeing you, Chris.
Too bad you can't bring your cat.
Yeah. Yeah, too bad. But she'll be looking forward to meeting everybody on the screen as well. Yeah.
Thank you.